Longtime champion of innovation and creator of the X Prize, please join us in welcoming Peter Diamandis, a man who truly believes in building a world of abundance.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. How you guys doing, okay? Great. Hello to my friends in the back. Can I grab a cup of coffee from you guys as well? Appreciate it. We are living during the most extraordinary time ever in human history. Right? We are in the final throes of the gameplay. This is a time during which we are all becoming godlike on so many dimensions. Just think about what we have as our assets today. There is nothing we cannot know. There is access to a near infinite amount of capital, right? Angel and seed, venture, crowdfunding. The sovereign wealth funds are beginning to come down and invest into the entrepreneurs. There's no access to expertise you can't have. The ability to access AI, to 3D print on the cloud. The question is, with that extraordinary power, what do you want to do? Each and every one of us have at our hands the ability to do what only governments and the largest corporations around the world had just 10 or 20 years ago. The question is, what do you want to do with it? Ultimately, it's the passion of your mind. It's the decision that you have. It's the frustration that you hold. It's the decision that you say, I'm sick and tired of the way this is. And I'm going to use the superpowers I now have to change that. In this community, that's what this is all about. Right? You're now more empowered than ever before. So we're living in a time where I believe we're going to create more wealth in the next 10 years than we have in the last century. Right? The top 50 of the Fortune 500 are going to look very different 10 years from now. And many of you are going to be in those places. The question is, what will you do with that wealth? We're living in a time where an individual entrepreneur like you can, in fact, impact the lives of 1 billion people. You can touch the lives of hundreds of millions of people throughout Africa. You'd have to have been Muhtar Kent at Coca-Cola or Jeff Immelt at GE with arms and legs in 40 countries. Today, you can have a great piece of code and do that. It's extraordinary. And with extraordinary power comes extraordinary responsibility. So we're living in a time of amazing moonshots. And as you create wealth, I want to remind you what you do with that wealth and the moonshots you take is so important. My dear friend Brian Johnson, who's just on stage here, his moonshot of connecting the brain to the cloud is amazing. He's joined with me in my moonshot of going out to mine the asteroids to make an infinite amount of resources available to uplift humanity. Or the other moonshot, which I love, is extending the healthy human lifespan. In the next decade, we are creating such a massive database of genomic information, of phenotypic information. We're going to understand why some live to 120 and others do not. Cancer is in our sights, as is the ability to add 30 or 40 healthy years in our lives. We're also in a time where we can begin to crowdsource the solutions for any challenge and problem out there. I would rather trust the crowd to solve a problem than any single government. At the end of the day, you tell me what problem cannot be solved, because I'm clear it can be. I'm proud right now at the X Prize Foundation, where I serve as a founder and executive chairman. We've taken on and launched $150 million of prizes. Another $200 million are under development. And if we can connect with the cloud and make a proper application of blockchain to incentivize the world to sort of identify their biggest problems, create the incentives to solve those problems, and then execute and solve it, and then wash, rinse, repeat, we're living in a world where there are more people who can solve problems than can create problems. And that's a world that gives me tremendous hope. So the challenge, thank you so much. That was my hope of getting the back of the room quiet, but I never expected a coffee. Thank you. Appreciate that. The challenge is that as we look towards the future, we are looking towards the future with a brain that was designed on the savannas of Africa hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago. The 100 billion neurons in our brain, the 100 trillion synaptic connections were idealized for a world that was local and linear. Back then, nothing changed century to century, millennium to millennium. Nothing affected you that was not within a day's walk. Today, the world is global and exponential, and what we do because of our cognitive biases is we take the past and we project it into the future, and we mess it up every time. But our ability today is to do extraordinary things. So one of the things that I realized and that I believe is happening right now, what I call the 6 Ds of exponential, as we begin to digitize everything, finance, manufacturing, biology, everything, we enter periods of slow, deceptive growth. It then becomes disruptive, and then dematerializes, demonetizes, and democratizes entire services and industries. Right? If you think about people, if I asked you how many folks here in the room had heard about 3D printing 5 years ago, can you raise your hands? How about 10 years ago? 20 years ago? So it's a 34-year-old technology. It's just been in very slow, deceptive growth until all of a sudden becomes disruptive and changes everything. And then as we dematerialize things, as things become apps on our phones, I don't carry a GPS, a camera, a video camera, any of these things, they are literally things that are bits. The marginal cost of replication is near zero, the marginal cost of transmission is near zero, and that leads to a demonetization of everything. And then a democratization. We're heading into a world where the best education on the planet, the best healthcare on the planet is going to be for free. And that's a world I hope we can create, right? Where AI and robotics are going to provide these things at the cost of electricity, which is effectively free for the sun. We're in this rapid exponential growth of solar energy around the world, production, collection, and storage. Today, a young boy in the middle of Tanzania on a smartphone has access to the same information as Larry Page has on Google, and more information than Bill Clinton had when he was president of the United States. It's an extraordinary world that we're living in, and we forget how fast things are changing. We forget how empowered we are. The implications for this kind of exponential growth, it's what we teach at Singularity University, and what we stand for is that we're now in a world that each and every one of us can impact in a positive way the lives of 1 billion people. And if we do, the world gets better and better, right? The world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. You want to become a billionaire? Help 1 billion people. It's an amazing coalition of opportunity and power. So the question is, with that kind of ability, what do we do? One of the things I think is extraordinary is that we're about to enter a period of time where we're going from 1.8 billion people on Earth in 2010. We're at 3.8 billion people 1.8 billion people connected on the net in 2010 to 3.8 connected today. In the next 6 years, we're about to go to 8 billion people connected. We've got 5G networks coming online globally at 10 to 100 gigabit network speeds. We've got Google Loon. We've got Facebook with drones and satellites. We've got OneWeb with $1.2 billion from SoftBank deploying 900 satellites. We've got SpaceX with 4,000 satellites. We're about to connect the entire planet at gigabit connection speeds. What does that mean? It means 4.2 billion people who have never been connected, never uploaded or downloaded anything, are about to come online. They're not coming online like you and I did at 9600 baud. They're coming online at gigabit connection speeds with access to the world's information. So these 4.2 billion people are all going to want the best education, the best healthcare, insurance, banking. And they're all going to want it digitally. They're all going to want it on blockchain. They're all going to want it in a dematerialized, demonetized fashion. The other thing that's happening is that we're entering a period of, I believe, extraordinary abundance. And, you know, I know that for most people, we are bombarded by the news. And I want to take a second to talk about this because it's very important to me. The news media is a drug pusher, and negative news is their drug. And in every device that we have, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we are being hit with negative news. Now, I'm not saying that it's not true. What I'm saying is that it's not a fair and balanced view of the world. The news media's business model is to connect your eyeballs with their advertisers. That's how they make money. And on the savannas of Africa, we evolved to pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news. Because you missed a piece of negative news back then, your genes were out of the gene pool. And so when you look at the news, all you get streamed to you from around the world is every problem that exists. Right? There's no one standing outside of SFO saying, there was no airplane crash here today. Right? It's just not news. I wish it were funny, but it's not. We're living in a world, it is funny, I know, yes, but we're living in a world where we are bombarded by negative news, and your most precious asset as a human is your mindset. It is your mindset. It's how you see the world and think of the world. And if you allow them, the news editors around the planet, to decide what you see 2 or 3 hours a day, and it gets you scared or pissed off, you're giving up the control you have of your future. So I, for one, believe that we do live in an extraordinary world, a world where we can now take control of the problems and, driven by our passion, by our massively transformative purpose, create moonshots and go and solve those things, right? We are a world of gods with a small g, with omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence, the ability to know and do, to take action, to say, I refuse to let this problem exist. I'm going to solve that problem. We heard one of our Singularity University alums on stage talking about impact. Yes, we have to take a world of, not a giving pledge, but an impact pledge, where I pledge to change this, to fix this. And so I know that this is what this community stands for, a community that will solve and will fix the grand challenges. So look at the data. Over the last 100 years, the per capita income for every nation on this planet has more than tripled. The human lifespan has more than doubled. We're going to double it again. The cost of food has dropped 20-fold. The cost of energy has dropped 100-fold. Transportation's thousands-fold. Communications millions-fold. We're actually living during the most peaceful time ever in human history. Your chance of dying a violent death are 1/100th of what they used to be. It's the work of Steven Pinker at Harvard. At the end of the day, this is the most amazing time ever to be alive. Don't ever forget that. So, it's an honor to be here. I love the work that Consensus is doing, that Amanda and the Ethereal Summit is doing. I'm a newbie here. At the end of the day, I think that the work that you're doing is about literally empowering the planet to solve its problems, empowering individuals to take back their rights, and creating a world of extraordinary abundance. Right? I'm a scientist, I'm an engineer, I look at the boundary conditions of where we're going. And the boundary conditions of where we're going is a near infinite amount of energy, of knowledge, of power to create, to go from mind to matter, by thought, by spoken word. It's truly a video game. Anyway, I actually going to save 5 minutes and take some questions on any of this because I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. So thank you for that, and I'd love some questions. And thank you for the coffee. Please. Can't see through the lights, but yeah.
Hey, Peter. Thank you for that. So question is around integrated cooperation. I think as humans, we're egoholics. One of the challenges we have is actually how we work together and not duplicate efforts. So would love your thoughts on how we can actually reprogram our brains to work more cooperatively at scale on these grand challenges?
So that's a great question, and cooperation is critically important. You have to remember, as a species, we evolved to compete. We do our best work, at the Olympics competing against each other. We compete to find a spouse. We compete in our business. I don't want to take away, hundreds of millions of years, call it billions of years of evolutionary drive and competition, because that weakens the ability for us to make progress in some ways. Collaboration, or whatever you want to call that conjunction, I think is important. That's what we're trying to do at the X Prize Foundation and the platform we spun out called HeroX, which is put up a challenge. And it was interesting, right, because with the Ansari X Prize, our first prize for spaceflight, I remember at the end of that 8-year journey, when Burt Rutan was about to win, backed by Paul Allen with Spaceship One, when we had our team conference, person after person said, I'd love to win, but more importantly, someone's got to win this competition, right? So when the stakes are high enough, at the end of the day, even if you can't win, if you're in the game and it's connected with your massively transformative purpose, if someone wins, that's a great thing. Thank you. Other questions? Oh, come on, please. Thank you.
I wanted to ask about, just a little background. I'm from the city. I've lived, my grandparents grew up here. And I just started working with city regulators and have been exposed to how inefficient and ineffective government can be. What, in your eyes, are some of the solutions that are going to make governments work efficiently enough to keep up with the pace of exponential technology?
So, thank you. Great question. When people ask me what am I afraid of, one of the things that concern me greatest is the linear nature of government and the exponential growth of technology, right? We're entering into a period of near infinite computation power. I mean, literally, like the oxygen in the air. And riding on top of that exponential growth of computational power is sensors, networks, AI, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, AR, VR, blockchain. All these things are exploding as computational power explodes. And at the end of the day, governments, to a large degree, their goal is to stabilize teach those kids. And we all of a sudden have a collapse of the structured systems. We've got rules, and we've got a structured government which keeps rules in place, right? We're 3 to 5 years away from autonomous Ubers, Lyfts, Waymos, whatever it is, and that's going to be 5 to 10 times cheaper than owning a car. And cars are going to go away, but yet we still have government regulators requiring multifamily housing to have like 2 spots per. It's ridiculous. And so my biggest concern here, and one of the challenges, is the disruptive tension and the collapse that's going to happen. I hope that a lot of you, Joe and Amanda spoke about the work that they're doing with governments can. And I think at the end of the day, the smaller governments are going to be the more agile and willing to rapidly change. And then I hope, right? I love America. I hope we play catch up, because there's a lot of catch up to have had. Anyway, an honor and a pleasure. Thank you all so much.